Hey guys, Coffee and Commoners, Jack and Austin,
Hey, everybody.
here for another episode.
Yes, we're back.
Yeah. Jack, what are we drinking today?
Today, we are deviating a little bit from our normal caffeinated drinks. As it is the autumn season, we are having homemade cider. I crushed the apples. I boiled the apples. I juiced the apples. A little bit of citrus in there. There's some orange. I spiced it all up. And we are serving it hot and fresh today.
Jack makes pretty good cider. Just you should all know that Jack is like he's like autumn personified.
I love
almost.
the autumn season.
It's
My favorite time of year.
Yeah. Well, anyways, drinks up.
Here we go. Let me know what you think. Oh my god. Please don't.
Sorry, got close to the mic for my smacking noises there.
Oh god. So what do you think? What do you think?
That's real good.
Oh yay.
You know what? Okay, I don't know if how you're going to take this if I say this. It tastes like liquid applesauce, and it makes me all kinds of happy. It doesn't have the consistency of applesauce, but it just tastes like that same kind of...
I mean, applesauce was basically a byproduct of making this, except that it was so, like, I had to juice it all in order to get, like, the bottle of cider that I bottled away. So there wasn't much flavor to it left.
It makes me so happy, this apple cider.
Oh, yay, I'm glad.
Was this hard cider, or was this...
No, this is just...
Okay.
This is non-hard,
So
this is just
cider.
Cider.
This is not a special episode of Coffee and Commoners where we do cocktail and commoners.
I mean, do you want something to put in there? I got some apple brandy.
No, not right
Okay.
now. Okay. We'll do cocktails and commoners another time. And let us know in the comments if you want cocktails and commoners. Do you want me and Jack to get turned on a Thursday?
Oh, goodness. Oh, lordy.
We record on Thursdays. That's all you're going to know.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, we're going to have one of these Coffee and Commoners after hour specials, and we got to get the good mics for that,
Yeah,
So you get the deep, slow, sensual voice while we drink our...
Mike can't pick you up right now. It's too far away from you.
Oh, God damn it.
Okay. By the way, if you noticed a shift in audio quality one of those episodes, we were testing out a new mic, and... we had a few technical difficulties, and then we stopped using that mic the next episode after. So, that will explain the shift in quality.
Ta-da!
So we're back to using our bare bones stuff.
It's a peek behind the curtain for y'all.
I love this apple cider, though.
Yay!
I always love it when seasonal drinks come around.
It's my favorite time of year.
Seasonal drinks that are not pumpkin spiced. I will continue to crusade against pumpkin spice.
Okay, that is fair.
Yeah.
That is fair. Do you like pumpkin pie just by itself, like the physical pie?
Yes, I like pumpkin pie. It's
okay.
just I don't like pumpkin spice flavored other things that aren't meant
pumpkin
to be.
bread.
Yes, we had pumpkin bread.
Pumpkin cookies.
Yes, I've had pumpkin cookies and I like them.
Okay, so it's just the drinks mostly. Just
the baked goods. Pumpkin belongs in baked goods.
Okay.
Pumpkin does not belong in liquid form.
Okay, I can see why. Okay. I'm not like crazy. I'm not one of those, stereotypical white girls where the moment pumpkin spice lattes drop at Starbucks, I rush out to get one.
Yeah.
I have had one this whole season, and it wasn't until like a week ago that I actually had one, and I was like, yeah, it's all right.
Yeah.
It was the rainy day that we had here.
I feel like the first time you have pumpkin spice, you're like, oh my god, this is actually pretty nice and cool. Mm-hmm. But then, every year after,
you just become jaded.
You become jaded and let down by it.
It's not like peppermint mochas; those I love. But that's for like hardcore winter. That's November, December.
I like peppermint just fine, but
Yeah. But we're having cider today,
cider, yeah.
we have some monsters to go over today.
Yeah, we have a monster.
A monster.
It's always only one monster, unless it's a special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We may have more of those coming up. Who knows?
Yeah. So what monster are we talking about today, Jack?
So I'm going to preface this by saying I don't know how the fuck you're supposed to pronounce this.
I know how to pronounce it.
He claims to know how. I'm going to pronounce it one way. It may be slightly different from how Austin pronounces it. It may be slightly different from how you pronounce it. I don't know. I don't think I have actually ever heard this spoken aloud from, like anybody official at Wizards of the Coast. I don't care what they have to say. This is how I'm fucking pronouncing it. Today's monster of the day can be found on page 122 of the Monster Manual. It is the Duergar.
Duergar, yeah.
The group of medium humanoid dwarves that are lawful evil as written. That does not necessarily mean that all Duergar are.
Yeah. It's not necessarily a monster. It's just in the Monster Manual. It's a type of enemy you can run into, because most of the time the Duergar, they're sentient. They're not monsters, so... I mean,
you start to get into the realm of, there's rules as written, and then I like to say there's law, which is lore as written.
Yeah, there's
raw and law.
Yeah.
The raw law.
The raw law.
The raw law, yes.
Because here's another thing that I've just always, tried to think about when it comes to D&D is, and this is probably going to be a separate topic we can explore later, but it's just, separating the lore from the books from the rules of the books.
Yes.
Because people may say, oh, I really want to play a Duergar, but they're, flavored as evil, and it's they don't have to be. That's just the lore that it gives you in the books.
I mean, that's part of the whole renovation, or the updates that Wizards has been doing lately as well.
Well, because they want to make it... Because they want to make it clear to people that, hey...
Nobody is inherently bad.
Nobody is inherently bad. And also, at base, this is just the rules for playing these particular kinds of characters, these classes, and all that. The books that we have for 5th edition, I've just always associated in my mind as this is the lore of the Forgotten Realms.
Yeah,
that's just the world.
Yeah.
That this is mostly set in. The Sword Coast and the Forgotten Realms.
It's an excellent way to put it.
10 towns and all that. All those different... Menza Branson, the giant drow capital city in the Underdark. The Duergar and drow are not inherently evil characters. If anything, the legendary Dritz Duerden from Forgotten Realms lore is not evil in the least. He decides to stray away. And the other thing too is I'm going off topic from Duergar here, obviously, but the thing is that's the lore of that world. It's not the lore of your world. Change the lore of all these races and different variants of creatures. Treat it however you want to fit your own world. Ultimately, what you get for current 5th edition is just the lore of the Forgotten Realms.
Yeah.
And can be adapted however you see fit. Maybe you want to stick with the idea that the dwarves and elves are evil based on their history, and there's actually pretty good explanation for why the Duergar and the drow are the way they are in their history.
Would you like me to mention that for our audience?
Yeah, we'll unpack the Duergar now. But again, saying this, they don't have to be evil. They can be neutral. They can be good. It's just a different. It's up to you.
For those that appear in the Forgotten Realms, and as they are conceived of in the stat block as mentioned in the Monster Manual, again, page 122. Hearkening to what you just said, Duergar are from the Underdark, where they are also known as Grey Dwarves. Their backstory and their lore ties them very close with Mind Flayers.
Yeah.
Where they were sort of held in captivity by Illithids and eventually won their independence. It says here, with the aid of the evil god Ladugur, or however you pronounce that. Again, I don't know how to pronounce half the things in these books, so you'll have to forgive me.
I make up things.
Yeah, same
I
here.
make up pronunciations.
Yeah. But again, time spent under the thrall of mind flayers and the dark magics within has sort of seeped into their people and have changed them in this lore as written in some less than stellar ways. As said before, they are lawful evil, in addition to being medium dwarves. They have an armor class of 16, which is accomplished through a combination of scale mail and a shield. They have 26 hit points with 4 d8 plus 8 hit die and a speed of only 25 feet, so a little slower than your average human. They have a strength of 14, a dexterity of 11, a constitution of 14, intelligence 11, wisdom 10, and a charisma of 9. So they are ever so slightly below average on that front. They do have a damage resistance to poison, though, as well as dark vision out for 120 feet and then a passive perception of 10. They speak Dwarvish and Undercommon, and they are a challenge rating 1, which is equivalent to 200 XP. So nothing too crazy with the base Duergar here. Again, this is sort of just a base to sort of build off of, I think, versus, having this be a catch-all or a end-be-all. This is something you can definitely put these into with some modifications for the appropriate level of your party. Duergar have Duergar Resilience, so they have advantage on saving throws against poison, spells, and illusions, as well as to resist being charmed or paralyzed. And because of all their extensive time spent in the Underdark, they do have sunlight sensitivity. So while in sunlight, the Duergar has disadvantage on attack rolls, as well as on wisdom checks that rely on sight. So a couple extra traits for them there. Mm-hmm. You have something to say, Mr. Austin?
Not particularly.
Okay,
I did pull up just because. Let's run through the rest of the stat block here. But I did pull up the Monsters of the Multiverse, which has a new version of because this is also the first monster stat block that we've covered that also has a player equivalent.
Ah, yes.
So I thought we could also go through that.
Ooh, perfect. Yes.
And there's also the Monsters of the Multiverse has the most updated version of that. But Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes is the old legacy version. And that might also have some other lore explanations and all that.
Lovely. Mm-hmm. We can definitely go through those once we get through the base stat block here. Mm-hmm. Again, for the monster creature variant of the Duergar, they do have some actions here, as listed. Enlarge is up first, which recharges after a short or long rest. For 1 minute, the Duergar magically increases in size along with anything it is wearing or carrying. And while enlarged, the Duergar is large, doubles its damage dice on strength-based weapon attacks, and makes strength checks and strength saving throws with advantage. If the Duergar lacks the room to become large, it attains the maximum size possible in the space available.
I always thought that was like a good thing to separate these guys from regular dwarves, is they have some intrinsic magic to them.
Yeah, it's definitely something that helps to set them apart in addition to the lore surrounding them. The Duergar are typically armed with a war pick, which has a +4 to hit, a reach of 5 feet against one target. On a hit, it deals 1d8 plus 2 piercing damage, or 2d8 plus 2 piercing while enlarged. They also come with javelins, which is a +4 to hit, a reach of 5 feet, or a range of 30 feet on a normal ranged attack, or a disadvantage for 120 feet. On a hit, it deals 1d6 plus 2 piercing, or 2d6 plus 2 while enlarged. And then finally, Duergar have invisibility, which also recharges after a short or long rest. The Duergar magically turns itself invisible until it attacks, casts a spell, or uses its enlarge, or until its concentration is broken, up to an hour. So this is as if you're concentrating on a spell. Then any equipment the Duergar wears or carries is invisible with it. So a couple interesting features and abilities there.
It's a pretty solid stat block. I'm just going to run through, because there are other variants of the Duergar, thanks to Tome of Foes and also now Monsters of the Multiverse.
Oh, yes,
they
please
updated
share.
a lot of them. I'm not going to run through all of these, obviously, but these are just some other flavors of Duergar, Grey Dwarves, that you can use as enemies or as NPCs or something like that. It's very clear to me with this particular stat block, too, that, like, you know, this is supposed to be a grunt enemy. It's not supposed to be, like, something pretty big.
Yeah, with the
Duergar.
base stat block.
But, you know, it's a challenging enough enemy. It's got a lot of resources to it, especially invisibility and large. So, you know. But there are other variants of the Duergar. I'm going to go through them. If you guys have Monsters of the Multiverse that was recently released, it can be found on page 106. And then the following pages after that are all just the stat blocks for them. But some of the variants we have here are the Duergar Despot. Despots replace parts of their bodies with mechanical devices that they control through their psionic abilities.
Ooh.
That's another thing we have to talk about. But, like, you know, these Duergar set themselves apart from other dwarves by not only being just a different color and being from a different terrain, but also from being manipulated by magics from deep space.
Yes,
in
it's
the
all
far
of those
realms.
those illithids that they were.
The mind flayers altered them and all that. So because they have all that magic, because they've been manipulated by all that mind flayer magic, they obviously have, you know, innate magical abilities. But the Despot here, which is one of the variants, controls machinery that they've grafted onto their body with psionic abilities. There's also the Duergar Cavalrachni, which
Interesting name.
Are cavalry trained to fight while riding steeders or other underdark creatures as mounts. Steeders are, I think, basically just giant spider creatures of some kind from the Underdark. But yeah.
Interesting.
So, you know, an option.
Yeah.
There's also the Duergar Mind Master. Wearing fearsome masks, Mind Masters usually operate as spies both inside and beyond a Duergar stronghold. Their psionically augmented abilities enable them to see through illusions with ease and shrink down to miniature size to spy on their targets. There's also Duergar Soul Blades. Soul Blades are Duergar combatants whose mastery of psionics allows them to manifest blades of psychic energy to slice apart their foes.
It's very much like the rogue subclass of Soul Knife.
Yeah, a little bit, probably most of the inspiration. There's also Stone Guard. Stone Guards are elite troops deployed in small numbers to bolster war bands of regulars or organized into elite strike forces for specific missions. Warlords, as well, are cunning, inspiring, and merciless in equal parts. A skilled leader in battle, the Warlord Duergar can use spikes of psionic energy to compel the warriors they command to fight harder. There's also Duergar Zarorns. Zarorns? It starts with an X. They are specialists who construct weapons using a mixture of alchemy and psionics. There's also Duergar Constructs. Creative engineers have built numerous war machines, including some that can be fused with a Duergar. Such Duergar machine hybrid is fueled by the Duergar psionic energy, and the Duergar inside the machine can psychically channel its pain into power when attacking. Ooh, a little dark there.
Yeah.
The machines are deployed to assist with construction projects and war. Some Duergar bravely volunteer to become hybrids, while other Duergar are forced into the fusion by Underdark tyrants.
Yeah, a little dark.
Yeah. And there's variations of different Duergar constructs, but yeah,
Quite a variety that they have available.
There's quite a variety of grunt and challenging enemy types for Duergar if you make them an enemy type in your campaign.
I do like that good variety that they have available. That's nice.
Yeah. So the other thing is that Duergars are a player race option. If you've got Monsters of the Multiverse, Duergar are found on page 12, right at the front of the book almost. Dwarves whose ancestors were transformed by centuries living in the deepest places in the Underdark. That chthonic realm is saturated with strange magical energy, and over generations, early Duergar absorbed traces of it. So there's a little bit of a change there from being, captured by the mind flayers to then, just the intrinsic magic of the Underdark. Duergar, as players, you are a humanoid. You are also considered a dwarf for any prerequisite or effect that requires you to be a dwarf. Your size is medium. Your walking speed is 30 feet.
Oh, 30.
You have dark vision of 120 feet. And you have, that same Duergar magic. Starting at 3rd level, you can cast the Enlarge Reduce spell on yourself without requiring material components. Starting at 5th level, you can also cast the Invisibility spell on yourself without requiring material components. Once you cast either of these spells with this trait, you can't cast that spell with it again until you finish until you finish a long rest. You can also cast these spells using spell slots you have of the appropriate level. Intelligence, Wisdom, or Charisma is your spellcasting ability for these spells when you cast them with this trait. Choose when you select this race. That's another thing that they've been doing recently is like a lot of the races that had magical abilities intrinsically, they redid it so that you could choose which of your mental fortitude abilities governed your lineage magic, basically.
I do like that. That's very nice.
So that way, it's literally just one less number to keep track of because, your saving throws or whatever, or your attack rolls are going to be different depending on which ability you use. You also get Dwarven Resilience. You have advantage on saving throws you make to avoid or end the poison condition on yourself. You also have resistance to poison damage. And you have Psionic Fortitude. You have advantage on saving throws you make to avoid or end the charmed or stunned condition on yourself.
I was going to ask if it specifically mentions psionics or not. That's a interesting choice that they made. I'd like that.
Yeah. So yeah.
That's fun.
If you want to be a Duergar, you can.
That's some nice changes that they made in there. Lots of variety.
Yeah, a lot of variety for Duergar as an enemy type and Duergar as a player.
Yeah. So what do you think about them and how they're built? Do you like their general theme, their design?
I've always liked the idea of like the subterranean races that are like they have a different set of culture or something like that. I think they're either in that lore block that you read there or somewhere else. I had read something about the Duergar, the Grey Dwarves. They because of their history and their life within the Underdark, a lot of they don't have the same concepts of art and culture as we do. So they don't see the intrinsic beauty in a lot of things, which I thought was an interesting way of putting it. And honestly, that was like supposed to be a description of why they would end up being like neutral alignments.
I see.
Is like they don't necessarily see the intrinsic beauty in something for just being. Most of the tasks they perform are simply for tasks they perform or things they construct are simply for function, for a purpose. They don't have the same concept of art.
I was going to say, one of the last sentences it says under one of their traits in the original Monster Manual says that their craftsmanship and accomplishments endure, yet they are bereft of warmth or artistry.
However, you can be a Duergar bard and break the mold.
Yes, you can.
You can be a Duergar bard or an artificer or whoever, and you can break that mold and be like, I am from a different culture that is bereft of artistic expression, and now I'm going to go out and express myself.
Do you want to know the vibe that the Duergar description is giving me?
What?
The pixies from Timmy Turner and Fairly Odd Parents.
Oh, yeah.
The corporate pixies.
Yeah.
How they're just like very monotone.
Those Ben Shapiro pixies.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, they look like... They remind me of the pixies from Fairly Odd Parents. A little bit, just because, gray, monotone, as written, as described in here. which, like we said, is a little outdated compared to how they are described in more modern books. But
I don't really think this needs any buffs or changes.
yeah, I like the flavor.
Like, I like the idea of underdark societies.
Mm-hmm.
They don't necessarily have to be evil. The Forgotten Realms, obviously sets them up as, like, they come from this particular history, and this is why they are the way they are.
Yeah.
They have different sets of values and all that. And they've been manipulated by it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Would you use these in your campaign? Have you used these in your campaign?
I have yet to use Grey Dwarves.
Okay.
I didn't really allow them as a player race in my campaign because they just didn't feel like they fit into the setting.
Yeah.
And usually I'm pretty lax about that, about like which races you can be in a game. But it's like if the setting if I want to keep the setting to classic, like humans, elves, and dwarves, like classic
the Tolkien races.
the Tolkien elves, dwarves, hobbits, or halflings, whichever one you want to.
Yeah.
And of course your regular humans. Then I usually try to stick to that.
Mm-hmm.
If that's what the setting calls for. Otherwise, I try to make it almost like free reign. Do whatever feels right or what you want to do.
Yeah.
It's just in my most recent campaign, it wasn't something that seemed to fit.
Same thing with me. I haven't had them in my current campaign just because I didn't. I mean, when I started the campaign, when I built the world, I did not know most of the races of D&D. I knew, like you said, just the basic Tolkien races and a couple of the other weirder ones. So Duergar are not in my world currently. Will I incorporate them? Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, like this is an offshoot of the Duergar, but because the only thing they have in common really is their homeworld, the Underdark. But the Drow, for example, I reworked their history and the reasons like why they're different from regular elves in my own world, because I wanted Drow in my world. I wanted that like separation of like Drow cultures, and basically it was kind of a take on different nomadic cultures. And the elves were kind of a nomadic people in my world and lore. So I tried to redo the Drow as just another variant of that, and they aren't intrinsically evil. They just have a different set of values than your regular elves.
Yeah.
And they view the world in different ways. That's just kind of how I decided to reflavor that particular. I could have done something similar with the Duergar, with the dwarves, but I had a different vision for the dwarves as like,
yeah,
a different kind of people.
Yeah, like in my world that we have been playing in for a while, you have met one drow.
Yeah. He tried to kill us.
Yes.
We killed him back.
I mean, you guys don't really know anything about them. They're basically, the drow are underground. I have tieflings underground as well. I could very much put the Duergar underground as well. But there's a whole hidden world that I've just left unmentioned.
All those mole people.
The mole people. Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I haven't touched on them.
Actually, well, the deep gnomes are the mole people. That's the other one.
Go.
That's the other one. Is like they went with 3 Underdark. I think there's probably more, but there's 3 Underdark variants of most of the other races. They have Grey Dwarves, Dark Elves, and then they got deep gnomes.
Yeah.
See, we got all types.
Yeah.
Got all types down here.
Would I ever use these? I like their flavor. I like they got a good flavor, very juicy. I like the flavor. But I have not incorporated them to this date. I will probably do so for campaign 2.
You know
if
what?
I get the right setting.
The one last joke about them.
Oh goodness.
The vibe that they actually give me is Mole from Atlantis. You have disturbed the dirt.
Yes.
I don't know. I feel like I know that that's a joke character, but like
I love Mole.
But Mole is so fun.
Yeah.
He's like an artificer and like an actual smart character, even though they kind of just throw home away as a joke. But
Yeah,
but
he's great.
But the Duergar kind of remind me of that. I feel like they'd be the types in a fight to like burrow.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that. But yeah, they're fun. Anything else you have to say about them as a creature?
Nah,
Okay.
they're cool.
Okay.
Dwarves are cool. Play more dwarves.
I like dwarves.
Dwarves are dope.
Yeah.
I may play a dwarf in the future, right after I play an orc.
There you go.
Yeah.
Gotta get your ducks lined up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I okay. The few like player lineages that I enjoy are gonna most like the ones that I enjoy the most are humans, orcs, and dwarves. I know not a whole lot of people like humans, but you know, humans have their benefits. And orcs are just cool in general. Lord of the Rings has really gotten me on that orc high.
Human get feats though.
Human does get feats.
They do indeed. That starting feat for human variant, so good.
Yeah. I know a lot of people. This is a continuation off of the fighter discussion
from last week.
Week. But like the humans get shit on a lot because people think they're boring, and it's just like, you know, if you think a human is boring mechanically, sure, that's justified. If you think human is boring to roleplay, then
it's okay to be wrong.
Like you're just unimaginative.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for any of my close friends that have the opposite opinion of me, but you're wrong. Humans can be interesting. I played a human for a whole campaign.
We are human.
Yeah.
You can't come and tell me that humans are boring while you are a human. You're going to tell me that you yourself that is making this comment is boring. Well, okay, maybe some people are. Not everybody, though. It's a very generalized statement that they make. I can't stand it.
I like orcs and dwarves, though. They're like
yes.
I know. Like D&D's trying to stray away from like this idea of like, races being intrinsically strong or hardy or things like that. But I've always liked the idea of like the dwarves and orcs being hardier individuals than most, just because they're
just built different.
Yes, but they also live in different environments than just regular humans, you know. So their points of origin determine how hardy they are, and like the dwarves and the orcs live in like the mountains and all that, and they're just hardy individuals and these strong character types. So
yes,
I don't know.
indeed.
That's why I've liked them the most. Mm-hmm. But that's not what we're talking about today. Today we're talking about random topic.
Oh, random topic.
Random topic.
You want to give us a roll, good sir? I've got the table pulled up.
Here's the click clack coming now. I can't read what that says. 28?
Ooh, 20. Here we go. 28. Paladins and their oaths. We've talked. I made a comment or two about this last week, about when you were going off about, you know, how certain classes have baked in roleplay hooks.
Yeah.
You know, clerics and their gods, paladins and their gods, but not every paladin needs to have a god. It's just the one that people most frequently choose. So please give us some thoughts. Give us your opinions.
I feel
on,
like I
paladins and their.
I feel like I should give people my source from the player handbook just as a base, just so it doesn't sound like I'm making things up.
All right.
I swear to God, if you comment source in the comments with a question mark,
it's coming. It's coming.
But yeah, paladins.
He's scrolling through.
The official description of their oath. Where is it?
Here it comes. Hold your breath.
The official description of their oaths is that when they reach third level, you swear an oath that binds you as a paladin forever. Up to this time, you have been in a preparatory stage, committed to the path, but not yet sworn to it. Now you choose this is listing on. Now you choose your oath. The oath. I'm leaving the flub in. Embrace your mistakes.
Oh, God.
Detailed at the end of the class descriptions. Your sacred oaths. Becoming a paladin involves taking vows to commit the paladin to the cause of righteousness and active path of fighting wickedness. The final oath taken when he or she or they reaches 3rd level is the culmination of all the Paladins' training. Some characters with this class don't consider themselves true Paladins until they have reached 3rd level and made this oath. For others, the actual swearing of the oath is a formality and official stamp on what has always been true in the Paladin's heart. So yeah, an oath is ultimately something that they swear. There's no mention of an actual god in most of a god or something that to be aligned to in most of these. I know people will usually say like they tie it to the divine or something like that, and that might also just be because of the ability itself, Divine Smite.
Yeah.
It's like you're calling down holy power to smite your enemies. But yeah, I mean, on top of that, a paladin swears to uphold justice and righteousness, to stand with the good things of the world against the encroaching darkness, and to hunt the forces of evil wherever they lurk. Different paladins focus on various aspects of the cause of righteousness, but all are bound by the oaths that grant them power to do their sacred work. Although many paladins are devoted to gods of good, a paladin's power comes as much from a commitment to justice itself as it does from a god. Paladins train for years to learn the skills of combat, mastering a variety of weapons and armor. Even so, their martial skills are secondary to the magical power they wield. Power to heal the sick and injured, to smite the wicked and the undead, and to protect the innocent and those who join them in the fight for justice. So, even it says right there, it's not just about being devoted to a god or something like that. A part of it is also just pure tenacity.
Yeah.
Pure idealism, pure zealotry,
sheer will, sheer dumb luck. Sometimes
that's why charisma is their spellcasting set. I don't know if I've ever said this, but I've always thought of like, because there's 3 different mental fortitude stats that are in D&D, and those are wisdom, intelligence, and charisma. Wisdom and intelligence are obviously kind of like some of the most common spellcasting abilities. Charisma also has a good chunk, actually, but...
I'm going to say wisdom and charisma are the most common.
Oh, yeah, well, intellect is obviously wizard, but that's the one spellcaster most people play, usually, anyways. So, intellect is obviously your understanding and study of magic. Wisdom is more like magical vibes. I don't
Interesting way of putting it. I don't know if I necessarily agree.
It's more like... I don't know actually how to describe wisdom-based magic, but charisma-based magic, like the paladins have, I've always thought about it as it's your sheer force of will. It's like I am too stubborn to die, so I am going to just use my power, my sheer personality to I don't know. Yeah. I'm not doing a good job at describing it, but this is more about the oaths than the actual spell casting of it. So, there are many oaths that a paladin can take.
Yes, indeed.
I guess we're just talking about oaths in general rather than...
Yeah, paladin oaths, Any of your favorites? Do you have ones that you particularly like? Changing oaths, breaking oaths? There's a little bit to discuss here.
Well, as you know, I played a human bard for a long time.
Yes.
That bard became a warlock.
Yes, he did.
That bard then broke his warlock pact.
Yes, he did.
Became a bard paladin.
Yep.
And then after became a bard paladin, struck another deal with a dark entity simply for an extra boost of power to help fight the big bad, but ultimately not severing his oath with his other god.
Yeah.
So I was 3 charisma casters all in one.
You
and I wasn't even really a caster. I was like some pseudo ranger bullshit.
You really ran the gamut on that one in terms of the I mean, they all blended together really well, but
yeah.
So what
the oath I played when playing that character was Oath of Redemption.
Oh yes.
I was trying to figure out ways to choose a proper oath. Obviously the heavy hitting oaths are ones like Oath of Vengeance and Oath of Conquest, and I was like, those are all heavily combat focused. And I only took like 3 or 4 levels in Paladin ultimately, so I only had the basic abilities from 3rd level and that. so I wasn't super focused on it because I had grander ideas for what my multi-class was going to be. Because I wanted those magical secrets that Bard can get.
Of course.
Oath of Redemption had some cool stuff in it. It had its main heavy hitter feature at 3rd level was Rebuke the Violent, which was basically as a reaction to one of your allies getting attacked within 30 feet of you, you could force the attacker to make a wisdom save and then take radiant damage equal to the amount of damage they dealt to your opponent if they failed. So, pretty solid ability. I only used it a handful of times, to be honest, but it was pretty good.
Okay.
So Oath of Redemption kind of has a special place just because, it was the Paladin Oath that my first character swore.
Yeah.
And then Oath of Vengeance is just, like, a really good one. Because it is literally... Oath of Vengeance is what I use if I'm building a dex-based paladin. Yes, you heard me, a dexterity-based paladin. They can be done. I have done it for an NPC stat block. So,
yes, you have.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, right. I haven't ever mentioned this. I have an NPC in my game which started out as just kind of supposed to be a quest giver and like a hook, but now he's kind of like my self-insert into my own campaign. Because he started out as a character stat block to begin with, that I was going to try and play, but I just never got to it. But now he's in my campaign. But he's an Oath of Vengeance, and he's a dexterity-based paladin, and it's kind of ridiculous. Oath of Vengeance just has some really good abilities on it. Some of the spells they get, like Hunter's Mark, Misty Stepped, Haste... Banishment, Hold Monster, like this thing is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's got some great stuff on
in terms of spells. And also its like capstone ability at 20th level is pretty dope too, because like you're the Avenging Angel, and you sprout wings and gain a flying speed of 60 feet, and you emanate a menacing aura in a 30-foot radius. Each creature within 30 feet of you has to succeed on a wisdom saving throw or become frightened of you for 1 minute. So that Oath of Vengeance is really good.
Yeah.
But, I think I don't necessarily have a favorite just because I haven't, like, played solely just a regular paladin.
Yes, I myself have neither. I have not played a paladin.
So we're the least qualified to talk about this. I'm a little more qualified than you just because I did a paladin multi-class.
Yeah.
But yeah.
My multi-class was sorcerer cleric, which made no fucking sense, but hey, we're here.
2 spellcasting abilities. Count them, 2 spellcasting abilities.
I mean, hey, they're both decent though, that's the thing.
Yeah.
It works.
Yeah. So one of the things about Paladin Oaths is that they have a set of ideals.
They're tenets.
They're tenets that are detailed at the very beginning. And this is ultimately what, like, you can choose either, whether your paladin gains their power strictly from their tenets or their tenets are given to them by their god. And they worship a god that represents those tenets. So that's just one way of looking at it. Just as an example, let me pull up one.
I can read up the Oath of Devotion if you want.
Yeah, Oath of Devotion.
So first up here, Oath of Devotion. First one is honesty. Don't lie or cheat. Let your word be your promise. Courage. Never fear to act, though caution is wise. Compassion. Aid others, protect the weak, and punish those who threaten them. Show mercy to your foes, but temper it with wisdom. Honor. Treat others with fairness, and let your honorable deeds be an example to them. Do as much good as possible while causing the least amount of harm. Finally, duty. Be responsible for your actions and their consequences. Protect those entrusted to your care, and obey those who have just authority over you.
Yeah. Oath of Devotion is also like the most basic of the Paladin Oaths.
Yeah.
It is the player handbook basic starting out.
I was gonna say that is the iconic one. I feel like,
But those tenets, I don't know. This is weird religion parallel to use here, but you can kind of think of them as like the commandments from the Bible or something. Parallel to it. It's just like some people may flavor that as like these tenets are the word of God being of this paladin's God being handed down to them, and that is what they must follow. Or some people might simply think of it as like, this is what this order of knights or paladins holds dear, and therefore that is where they draw their power.
Yeah.
I think the biggest hurdle that most people have in terms of paladins have just tried to get over is just that literally it's like it is just the fact that there is very little mention of like deities when building them.
Yes.
And people have tried to explain like where exactly that power is supposed to come from, and the easiest way is just to say it's from a deity.
Yeah.
Honestly. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just it's one option in a world of many.
I agree. Here's a question for you.
Yeah.
What do you think is like, because you were saying earlier, when you were trying to choose an oath for your paladin, you were looking at, the big heavy hitters, vengeance and whatnot, but like you went with redemption. So choosing an oath for your paladin, there's obviously, you can go one for the role play aspect, the one that best fits your character in their journey, or you can try to go for mechanics, try to get, the big, like you said, the heavy hitters, the ones that are known for being able to do a lot.
Yeah.
So it's like, what's the
balance
to find?
There is also that aspect that we didn't talk about. Well, I guess we've kind of been talking about this whole time, but like, there are the superstar oaths subclasses, and then there's one, and each oath gives you a role play opportunity no matter what, because ultimately it's giving you a guide to like, these are the values that a paladin of this particular order should hold, and therefore you should try to emulate that in your paladin when you play them. I think like, it ultimately comes down to, what kind of character you want to play. And I don't really think of this as like, cookie cutter, easy way out of choosing my character's personality and ideals and all that. I think it's more of like a challenge to yourself to be like, to think within those lines and think, how would this particular character with these tenets act in certain scenarios? Not just to think of it from your perspective as just you outside of the game, the player. Obviously, when you're doing Oath of Devotion, you're thinking of like your most common holy knight, protecting the good people of the world, of the kingdom and all that. Oath of Vengeance has always to me seemed like a bit of an outlier, because and vengeance is not something that's usually looked on very positively. It does have a bit of a negative, not as negative as an oath breaker, of course, but still a little bit of a negative connotation to it. But I think like what they've tried to outline with vengeance, I can even read it too, just to the Oath of Vengeance is a solemn commitment to punish those who have committed a grievous sin. When evil forces slaughter helpless villagers, when an entire people turns against the will of the gods, when a thieves' guild grows too violent and powerful, when a dragon rampages through the countryside, at times like these, paladins arise and swear an oath of vengeance to set right that which has gone wrong. To these paladins, sometimes called avengers or dark knights, their own purity is not as important as delivering justice. I usually think of these guys as like lawful neutral. There is a bit of a Batman vibe to it. I like to think of these guys as they're either chaotic good or lawful neutral. I know those are two very opposite sides of the spectrum in terms of like alignment, and again, we have our own opinions about the alignment chart and how it doesn't fully fill in everything, but like they either care so much about upholding justice that they again, the ends justify their means, sort of thing, but there are certain lines they will not cross. The ends justify the means thing would actually kind of put them in the evil territory, but
potentially
having them be lawful neutral, it means that they uphold the law, but they don't necessarily qualms about how they go about upholding it. The other end of the spectrum, being chaotic good, is more they have a sense of right and wrong, and maybe it does not fit necessarily into written law. But I feel like in that case, Oath of Vengeance Paladins would be more like seeking personal justice if they were chaotic good, rather than a lawful neutral Oath of Vengeance. The other ones, there are other variants of Paladins. There's the Oath of the Ancients, which is more like...
I do love the flavor of the Oath of the Ancients.
That feels like it's more like... They describe it as the Green Knight, which... I haven't actually seen that movie, and I'm not sure if that story had any basis in how they made the Oath of the Ancients. But it's like a protector of nature more than civilization, usually.
Yeah, I mean, in that sense, it's not necessarily the same basis. I mean, like, I always think of like Oath of the Ancients as sort of like the druidic paladin or something like that, just because of the whole nature flavor that it has. Yeah. Obviously, not every druid is going to be, haha, nature, ooh, woo, but,
There's also, some other ones that are pretty good. Oath of Conquest is the classic, like I am a force to be reckoned with on the battlefield. My religion is war.
Yeah. Conquest and Vengeance have a very similar feel to me.
I feel like Conquest feels like you're the cavalry. Vengeance feels like you're the special ops.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. That's how I usually do it. Think of it. Cavalry, as in like you're not the guy that's going out first into the field of battle, but you're like the guy that everybody's like, oh, thank God he's here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and then Conquest has kind of an evil spin on it, usually.
It can.
I don't usually think of it that way. I think Oath of Conquest is honestly one of the only ones that's flavored like... Yeah, some of these paladins of the Oath of Conquest go so far as to consort with the powers of the Nine Hells, valuing the rule of law over the balm of mercy. Yeah. So this is like one of the only paladin oaths that specifically says... You don't have to be a paladin of a god. You can be a paladin of the devil.
Yeah. Asmodeus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Tiamat, come here. Let me get up on that. Be it like
there's no paladin of the dragon, really. But
I mean, you can kind of flavor, the conquest or crown.
Well, there is paladins of Tiamat too, and
Archon the Cruel.
Yeah, Archon the Cruel,
as played by Joe Manganiello.
Yeah. Yeah, we've talked about him.
Yes, we have.
Oath of Conquest definitely feels like one of those like lawful neutral or even delving into lawful evil territory when it comes to a paladin. Or even chaotic neutral, maybe. I mean, it does say that paladin... I feel
like it's one of the lawfuls.
Yeah, paladins usually feel like they fall somewhere within the lawful side of the table. Very rarely will I think they fall into chaotic.
Yeah. Of course,
but yeah,
we've set our piece on the alignment chart in brief bits, but as a general guide.
Yeah. Oath of the Crown is more of like devotion to a king or a monarchy or something, or some sort of ruling governing body.
Yeah, whoever's at the top, serve them.
Then there's There's other ones like Oath of Redemption, which I played,
Yep.
which I like. And that was flavored along the lines of like, it was weird because I was like a sword fighting bard. That's for the Oath of Redemption, but the Oath of Redemption flavor itself says that the oath requires a holy warrior to use violence only as a last resort. They believe that any person can be redeemed, and that the part of benevolence and justice is one that anyone can walk. These paladins face evil creatures in the hope of turning their foes to a light, and they slay their enemies only when such a deed will clearly save other lives. Paladins who follow this path are known as redeemers. While redeemers are idealists, they are no fools. Redeemers know that undead, demons, devils, and other supernatural threats can be inherently evil. Against such foes, paladins who swear this oath bring the full wrath of their weapons and spears to bear and spells to bear. Yet the redeemers still pray that one day even creatures of wickedness will invite their own redemption.
Very hopeful outlook.
Very hopeful outlook, and that the reason I chose redemption for my character in particular was just because like he went down a dark path and he kind of just wants something else. Yeah. He wants a different way. So that was kind of why that path was chosen. Other Paladin Oath,
Oath of Glory.
Oath of Glory. I've always felt like that was a little weird. It felt like a gladiator. Like an athlete or something.
I always think of this as like the Hercules class, personally.
Sure, something like that.
You know.
And then Oath of the Watchers. Watchers is weird.
Yeah,
it's also very fun.
Yeah,
this is like paladins that are specifically sworn to like keep out certain threats.
Yeah, it says specifically
otherworldly threats,
extraplanar creatures that want to. That can or want to lay waste to mortal soldiers. It reminds me very much like sorcerers of the Doctor Strange variety from Marvel. Keeping away the extra-dimensional enemies
something
of Earth.
Like that.
It kind of gives me that vibe, but less magic and more.
These paladins are like the more proactive of the paladins in terms of like searching out or like defending against these particular types of things. They feel like the monster hunters of paladins, mostly. Yeah.
They are the watcher on the wall.
But yeah, those are all the oaths, kind of some of their role play opportunities that they have available to them. But I
like ancients and I love watchers. Yeah. I don't know which one I would actually want to play myself.
Yeah. I mean, we can't delve into the full mechanics of everything, but I mean those are just some flavorful tidbits.
Yeah.
And then
here's a question for you.
Yeah.
If your character has, a role play moment, something happens in the story and there's a something that would cause you to want to either break the oath but not go evil, an opportunity to perhaps change the oath. What are your thoughts on that?
I think oaths can be flexible. It depends on the role play moment. Because some and this is different for every player and every table. Yep. But like my character switched classes and subclasses like 5 times because
there were several deaths thrown in between there.
Yeah, yeah, but like a bunch of times, anyways. So some of the stuff is malleable.
Yeah.
It may not make sense entirely for why they get new abilities, like suddenly changing the oath or something like that.
Like if you wanted to go from
story-wise, like if you wanted to go
from vengeance to redemption, like you have completed your quest to vanquish these enemies.
I like to call that the Luke Skywalker moment. It's where like at the end of episode 6, he's about to kill Vader and then he decides not to. So he goes from trying to enact vengeance and trying to fight the Empire for the true evil it is to no, I'm going to make a pure stand against evil and give this person who has been manipulated by the darkness a chance. So
It's not about destroying what you hate. It's saving what you love.
yeah. I don't think Luke loved Vader necessarily, but
Father-son bonds.
yeah, something like that. But yeah, I think if the story moment calls for it, you totally can do something like that, and if everybody at the table is okay with that, or the parties involved with it,
Yeah.
anyways, the DM and that particular player,
Yeah.
in particular,
I like the idea that it's, malleable to a degree, so you can fit it
But,
to what feels right. So long as the moment and the reason is there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the most common one that people do is they go Oathbreaker,
Yeah.
but Oathbreaker doesn't always feel right to me.
Yeah, because the way that it lays it out mechanically, there's the whole Orbis like, yes, you can only do this if you break your oath and go evil. It's like, you don't necessarily have to go evil, but,
It is a little funny, though, that Oathbreaker goes from, like, you have to have sworn a previous oath, and you must break it. And then it's like, because you have broken your oath to your previous god, for some reason you now have necromantic power. And it's just like, what?
Yeah. I feel like there's some tweaking that you could do if you were trying to, make changes.
Yeah. I think it depends on, what oath you start with and what oath you're thinking of changing to.
Yeah.
Whether or not the story moment really does allow it, and whether or not everybody is okay with it at the table. And that could come from a roleplay perspective or from a mechanics perspective. If it starts at a mechanics perspective, try to make it fit into a story perspective too.
Yeah.
About how you want to change it. But ultimately, don't try and force that change.
Yeah.
Try to let it come naturally or plan for it.
Yeah. I always feel like there's you gain a lot of benefit from discussing, players talking with DMs, DMs talking with players about things you want to accomplish in the story. Obviously, you don't have to, at this level I do this, at this session I do that. You don't need to do that, but here's a general vibe of what I want to go for, and you can have some flexibility there. And I know we're kind of going into a different topic, but having that work naturally, so that way if you do want to make a change to your character, go from one oath to another or something like that, you have that natural flowing capability, I'll say.
Yeah. Now imagine a Durgar Paladin, just combining the things we
A Durgar Paladin.
talked about.
I feel like, depending on if you're going lore as written, I think they definitely lend themselves to a Oath of Vengeance kind, or an Oath of Conquest. Rather.
I think they could do either Oath of Conquest. I think some could be Oath of Watchers, because if we're going off law,
going off law,
going off law, defending
against
the Illithids,
and
keeping them from
it's a very good choice.
Incursions and all that.
Yeah, you won't fuck with us again.
Yeah. You see this middle finger? It's going straight up your.
Oh no! I don't need that visual.
I'm gonna cut that out in post.
We'll just bleep over it.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah.
Paladin oaths. Anything else to say on that?
No. Paladins are solid as a class. Their oaths are cool.
There's a lot of fun variety. You can take any number of them for any number of reasons.
Yeah.
Switching between them, I feel like, it's finding the right moment and the right reason is important.
And it also just depends on the type of character you want to play. Because, sometimes people view them more as, mechanical as well.
Yeah.
And then they kind of don't take into consideration a lot of their tenets and all that. But, it's a good starting point.
Yeah.
And also a good challenge to keep yourself within those bounds.
It gives you a lot of role play opportunities. It gives you a lot to chew on, a lot to work with.
Yeah.
And I like that. Having a lot of strings to pull on throughout the campaign for your character, I think, is important versus if you sort of write yourself into a corner with absolutely nothing. It makes it a little difficult. I have done that once before.
Hee hee.
Yeah. But,
All right. Well, that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, I think I'm good. I don't really have a whole lot to say. And so, yeah.
All right. Well, I think that wraps it up for this episode.
Yes, indeed.
So, you know what? This week we'll give you a spoiler.
They do get a spoiler this week. I don't have to hide it in the jargon.
Yeah, you don't have to.
Okay. Ooh.
So next week, guys, what are we talking about, Jack?
Next week, you guys get yourselves a little menagerie of creatures that we are going to be talking about in the first half of the episode. It's going to be a collection of genies. Yeah.
Genies, gin, all that good
Dao,
stuff.
Jin, Freet, and Marids.
Just a whole lot of wishes.
Yeah.
Get 3 of them.
Yeah.
Or more if you make your last wish to wish for 3 more wishes.
You can't do that. That's like rule number 3.
That's no. They say nothing about that.
Yeah. Well, to each their own. Depends on how you roleplay.
Break the wish rule.
We will save any more discussion on that for next week. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Drop us a comment. Let us know your thoughts on Paladin Oaths, your favorite ones that you've played, your favorite to roleplay, your favorite mechanics, so on and so forth. But until next week, this has been Coffee and Commoners. I'm Jack.
I'm Austin.
Thank you for listening, everybody.
See you when you see you.
Stay caffeinated.
Bye.